Time for the Wells Report front page. A look at today's morning news while you were sleeping. Former Burisma board member Devon Archer is scheduled to appear before a House Oversight Committee or the House Oversight Committee for a closed-door transcribed interview. Fox News is told that Archer is expected to appear this time, even though he ducked the committee 3 times before and is under subpoena from that committee. A senior Republican close to the investigation says the DOJ tried to use an intimidation tactic Saturday, asking a judge to set a date for Archer to report begin serving jail time. Archer was found guilty of defrauding Native American tribes in 2022. That is the cause of his legal trouble. Fox is told that investigators intend to ask Archer about previously undisclosed bank records and the purpose of those transactions. In particular, the committee wants to know what role, if any, President Biden had in those transactions. By the way, according to the New York Post, the DOJ tried to put Archer in jail before House testimony. This is something you know. The Justice Department pushed for Devon Archer to report to prison days ahead of the former Hunter Biden business partner's congressional testimony, according to court documents. Manhattan federal prosecutors, Saturday during the weekend, filed a letter requesting a judge to set a date for Archer, who's 58 years old, to start serving a 1-year sentence in a fraud case unrelated to the first son's various scandals. Archer, who was set to deliver closed-door testimony to the House Oversight Committee today, had been challenging the conviction. In light of the appeals court ruling, the DOJ, quote, respectfully requests that the defendant be ordered to surrender at a date and time determined by the court to a facility designed or designated by the Bureau of Prisons to commence his term of imprisonment, read the letter to Judge Ronnie Abrams. Ronnie Abrams. Also, according to Newsweek, House Republicans have accused the Department of Justice for what they're saying is obstruction into their investigation of Hunter Biden and his foreign business dealings. This happened yesterday. The House Oversight Committee's investigation into Hunter Biden, son of President Joe Biden, has faced a number of obstacles. Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg told Newsweek yesterday that it's common for federal prosecutors to send such letters. Quote, as for the timing, I wouldn't buy the conspiracy theories because there's no chance that Archer would have to report to prison before his meeting with congressional committees. That's according to Ehrenberger. Representative Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican, reacted to the letter on Twitter yesterday and said the DOJ is now actively committing the crime of obstructing a federal investigation. Meanwhile, the United States Senate is calling for Garland and Weiss to testify. Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, led by Ranking Member Senator Lindsey Graham, the Republican from South Carolina, have signed and sent a letter to Chairman Dick Durbin, the Democrat from Illinois, asking him to call Attorney General Merrick Garland and David Weiss, U.S. Attorney of Delaware, to testify following events related to the investigation of Hunter Biden. In light of the foregoing discrepancies, both the Attorney General Garland and U.S. Attorney Weiss must come before our committee to clarify their statements regarding Mr. Weiss's authority to charge in districts outside the District of Delaware. The letter, dated Thursday of last week, they must also explain what happened to the allegations that were provided to them in the FD 1023. The committee Republicans also pointed out that Weiss's response on July 10th in a letter from Graham raised more questions than answers about Attorney Weiss's authority over the Hunter Biden investigation. Senator Rand Paul has announced a criminal referral. This one's official, to the Department of Justice with regards to Dr. Anthony Fauci, this being reported by Fox News. Paul pointed to an email from February of 2020 in which Fauci detailed a call with British medical researcher Jamie Farrar, who was the director of Wellcome Trust at the time. According to Fauci, those on the task force call included Francis Collins, former director of the National Human Genome Research Institute, and other highly credible scientists with expertise in evolutionary biology. They expressed concerns about the fact, upon viewing the sequence of several isolates of N, the novel CoV-2 virus, there were mutations in that virus that would be most unusual to have evolved naturally in the bats and that there was a suspicion the mutation was intentionally inserted. The suspicion was heightened by the fact that scientists in Wuhan University are known to have been working on gain-of-function experiments to determine the molecular mechanisms associated with bad viruses adapting to human infection. And the outbreak originated in Wuhan, said Fauci. In the referral, Senator Paul said, quote, "This directly contradicts everything he said in a committee hearing to me, denying absolutely they funded any gain of function. It is absolutely a lie." Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump has called for a temporary halt in U.S. military support until the Biden administration cooperates with congressional investigations into the business dealings of the president's son, Hunter. President Trump, speaking at a rally over the weekend in Erie, Pennsylvania, said no additional weapon shipments should be authorized until the FBI, Justice Department, and Internal Revenue Service provide every scrap of evidence they have of possible misbehavior by Biden family members. Trump threatened Republican lawmakers who didn't join the effort with primary challenges. Trump candidates have brought down multiple Republicans in the past as his rabid public following routinely puts pressure on GOP lawmakers who fall into the president's disfavor. That, by the way, is a biased news article from USA Today. That's the bias that we point out in the news. Trump said, quote, "They have to play tough. If they're not willing to do it, we've got a lot of good, tough Republicans around." In state news today, this from Kaiser Health News. A new Montana law will provide sweeping legal protections to healthcare practitioners who refuse to prescribe marijuana or participate in procedures and treatments such as abortion, medically assisted death, gender-affirming care, and others that run afoul of their ethical, moral, or religious beliefs or principles. The law, which goes into effect in October, will, according to Kaiser Health News in a biased statement, will gut the patient's ability to take legal action if they believe they did not receive proper care due to a conscientious objector or objection by a provider or institution such as a hospital. So-called medical conscience objection laws have existed in the state and federal levels for years, with most protecting providers who refuse to perform an abortion or sterilization procedure. But under new Montana law and others like it that have been passed or introduced in state houses across the U.S., this law goes further to the point of undermining patient care and threatening the right of people to receive life-saving and essential care, according to critics. From the city, specifically San Francisco, a giant flashing X sign was installed Friday on top of the building formerly known as Twitter headquarters in San Francisco, without permission from the city. This prompted an investigation by area authorities. The city began an investigation into the sign last week, saying the company failed to obtain permits required to follow design and safety protocols. This in a report from the Associated Press. Any replacement signage requires a permit to ensure consistency with the historic nature of the building and to make sure the signage is safely attached. This according to Patrick Hannon, spokesperson for the Department of Building Inspections, last week. A sad bit of news internationally. A Canadian principal of a school committed suicide after being called a white supremacist. This from Fox News. A Toronto school board and education minister announced that they are launching investigations into professional development training after a former principal died by his own hand following a lawsuit in which he alleged emotional distress from critical race theory training. Before his death, Richard Bilkstow, a 60-year-old former principal, sued the Toronto School District Board for emotional distress after he attended training where he was accused of being a racist. Bilkstow alleged in his lawsuit that Kiki Ojo-Thompson, who runs an equity firm called Kojo Institute, said that Canada was racist and has never reckoned with its anti-Black history. When Bilkstow disagreed with the instructor and challenged her comments, he was condemned for appearing to undermine a Black woman. Quote, "We're here to talk about anti-Black racism, but in your whiteness think you can tell me what's really going on for Black people," Ojo-Thompson said. This according to the lawsuit filed by the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. The principal also alleged he was called a white supremacist for sharing his beliefs. The family believes it was the hostile work environment that took a serious toll on Bilkstow's mental health, leading to his suicide. Education Minister Stephen Lecce called the allegation serious and disturbing. A spokesperson told Fox News that his staff will launch a review and present action items to ensure that, quote, this never happens again. NBC News is reporting on a federal lawsuit that was filed against Delta Airlines, accusing flight attendants of failing to intervene after a male passenger, according to the lawsuit, was served at least 10 alcoholic drinks, then groped a mother and her 16-year-old daughter. Before the plane even departed, the man allegedly asked the flight attendant for a vodka on the rocks. Over the first 3 hours of the flight, the Delta flight attendants served the intoxicated Delta passenger approximately 10 vodka on ice drinks, according to the lawsuit. The male passenger appeared to be visibly intoxicated, slurring his speech and occasionally attempting to get the teenager's attention. The more intoxicated he became, according to the lawsuit. When the girl asked him to stop talking to her, the man became aggressive and began to yell. The daughter was frightened by his personal questions, tone, and body language, turned her back to him to tell her mother that she was scared. When she turned her away from the intoxicated Delta passenger, he began grabbing her, putting his hands on her back. The girl's mother also intervened, begging the man to leave her daughter alone. They both told the man that the girl was a minor and still in high school, but he reached over and began pulling and pushing at the mother's arm, according to the suit. The mother spoke to a flight attendant, saying the passenger was very drunk and making both her and her 16-year-old daughter feel unsafe by yelling, making obscene gestures, and touching her daughter inappropriately. According to the lawsuit, the flight attendant then responded to, "Be patient," then walked away. Also, by the way, New York City's subway system is the latest to implement artificial intelligence-powered surveillance. This is following an increase of similar software use in airports and police stations across the country. The Metropolitan Transit Authority, the MTA, the agency that operates the city's public transportation, quietly rolled out a third-party technology to help crack down on fare evaders. This new policy comes weeks after the Transportation Security Administration announced an expansion of facial recognition software in use at over 400 airports. Also, police in Westchester County, a suburb outside of New York City, also recently reviewed they used AI to scan vehicle license plates and examine the driving patterns of vehicles.